Welcome back to Derry Public Radio. Reporting from the basement of the Derry Civic Center, this is CM Alexander with the news. A new hotspot has opened in downtown Derry. Lemke's Just Desserts boasts their pies will curse what ails you. That's probably a typo. Either way, head to Lemke's and get what's coming to you. You're listening to Derry Public Radio. This is Derry Public Radio.
Welcome back to Derry Public Radio, a bi-weekly Stephen King Book Club podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Kahn, alongside CM Alexander.
Hello, everyone.
And Benjamin Graham.
What up, constant readers?
And today we are covering part 2 of Thinner, our Patreon selection from Kevin Sundstrom, and we are reading through the rest of the book, and we have CM leading our discussion. CM, take it away.
Thanks, Josh. To quickly recap from our first coverage of Thinner, our antagonist or protagonist or subject, Billy Halleck, was cursed by Tattoo's Lemke after running over and killing his daughter Susanna, which was admittedly an accident, but he got off
with a car.
You made it sound like I just gotta run over here real quick and kill this daughter.
Really?
That's what I heard.
The cadence.
That was my immediate thought. He just ran over and killed his
He
daughter.
just had to run over and kill his daughter.
He's gotta run over there, kill her real quick. Okay.
His wife gave him a hand.
Oh,
Hey.
Jesus. Anyway, yeah, he doesn't get in much trouble for that because he's a rich white guy. And Lemke has a problem with that. So Billy is cursed and he is rapidly losing weight. That is the nature of his curse. And the other two people involved in serving injustice also got their own version of curses too. Carrie Rossington, the judge, turned into an alligator. Officer Hopley's face fell off, which is stating it very, very mildly. Billy's wife and doctor are talking about having him involuntarily committed because he told his wife about the curse, and so now he sounds like a crazy person. And in her defense, I'd probably be like, oh shit, gonna have you committed.
Yeah, in the real world, of course, someone's like, I got cursed. Yeah.
So we left off with him hitting the road to track down the Lemke family and try to get him to lift the curse. And we start with Billy arriving at the carnival in Old Orchard Beach with photos of all of these individuals. And he's asking around to see if anyone has seen them and how long it's been since they've moved on. And there's a paragraph in here that reminded me a lot of Revival. Did you guys catch that?
No.
There are a lot of things in the second half of the book that I kept getting flashes of other stuff we've read. What in particular are you talking about?
So he's walking around and it's really hot outside and he's wearing his sport coat because he doesn't want to draw attention to his terrible body. So he draws it by wearing a coat. And he's starting to get sunstroke or heat stroke. And he's describing it as feeling unreal, outside of himself, like he could look behind things and see the lights, cameras, key grips in some unimaginable real world. And I was just like, ooh, that feels very Revival-y. Looking behind things and seeing what's really there.
Weird, because it's the next scene for me when to avoid said heat stroke, he goes into that dive bar. This entire scene where he's talking to this old man feels like it's from a different book.
Tell me you guys loved it, though.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, good.
No, I completely agree. He goes into this bar and it really is, you get the feeling of when you're someplace strange and it has that carnival circus atmosphere, and then you walk just past where the party is and find some quiet spot. It feels so away, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The one thing about this scene is it gave me a red herring that I really thought was going to come back in a big way and never did.
All right, hold on. Before you talk about it, should we get a boner talk? Oh, I'm sorry. Is red herring not a euphemism for... Never mind.
You're thinking you're Red Rocket.
Oh, God.
No, I just... The phrase, it gave me a red herring. We
It
can cut
is-
all
Okay,
this.
it is too early for boner talk. So he goes into the bar, and that is where we meet Lon Enders, a local who knows a lot about both the regular carnival folk who show up year to year and also what he calls the drift trade.
I'm sorry for cutting Josh off. I want to know what the red herring was.
So Lana's telling just kind of like his relationship with the Romani people that come through year after year. He's known them for so long because he worked the carnivals when they came around. Billy shows him the picture of tattoos, and he's like, Teddy, which was weird. And then he tells him this is where we find out that they do like dog fights and cock fights. And the fight where you each bite one end of a scarf and knife fight each other.
I said no boner talk.
Sorry. So the violent stuff that they do as side attractions. And he talks about that he went up to their camp, and in the darkness, when he couldn't possibly be seen, Tattoos came out of his trailer, looked right in his direction, and told Flash, is what he called him, that he'd be seeing his wife soon.
His dead wife.
He'd be seeing his dead wife soon. And he called him Flash, and that was his quote, secret name. And he says, the line is, they set a hell of a store by knowing a man's secret name. And I was like, that's coming back. It doesn't.
Nope. It's just a cool
Not at all.
thought.
It's just really, the whole scene is very cool.
He tells a great story, and I loved that secret name business. And I didn't get this, because at first I was like, is he gonna get cursed? Did he do something?
Is he living with a curse? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why he recognized him and kind of had that camaraderie and was willing to talk to Billy in the first place. But no, he's just super old. And I feel like Lemke was just being like, dude, you're gonna be with her soon. Don't worry. Not a
It wasn't
threatening.
a threat.
Right.
Yeah.
That is one thing I was surprised we don't see at all in this book is as he goes on this road trip part of the book that he wasn't going to other towns and finding other cursed people completely unrelated to his situation.
So I was thinking about that and like, okay, you'd have to be a great investigator because how would you figure out that this death was tied to that, especially if, like we found with Hopely, you kind of revert back to your normal state,
True.
like a werewolf.
Right. You'd have to essentially investigate every suicide and every odd death.
Well, I mean, he's only a week behind. Of course, I'm also assuming that Teddy is just cursing people in every friggin' town.
I know. I had to remind myself that his daughter was killed, and that's why.
Because
It's a
it
powerful
almost
magic.
would make
so.
sense because these people are treated
Terribly,
horribly in every town they go. So maybe I was just projecting my...
I definitely was.
Yeah, I'd just be like, and you're fucking cursed. Fuck you.
Everybody's
Fuck
cursed.
you.
So anyway, what he gets out of Lon is that he's not sure exactly where they went, but he knows that they were headed north on Route 1, which would take them toward Rockland. And we find out a little later that at this point, when he has this conversation, he's about 3 weeks behind the family.
Oh, if I may, something weird happened. In the scene, the very last scene from part 1, he's talking to the waitress and she's talking about, where he might go. Bar Harbor, where all of this ends up, is the first place she mentions.
I thought about that and I went back and reread it because I'm like, wait a minute, why did he go to all these other places if that wasn't the place she told him?
Yeah, she was like, that's the biggest place.
But she actually suggested to him that he go to Old Orchard. Because I had that same thought. Yeah, the way it was mentioned, it makes sense why he would start at Old Orchard.
Yeah.
Yeah, this segment, it starts off very cool. I like the very first town he goes to. It's very atmospheric. But then he just does the same thing like a dozen times across this chapter. And it'd be like he's 3 days closer to where they were.
The update on how close he was the most exciting part after this in this whole 20-page chapter.
Yeah, it gets a little tedious. And it made me think, this is one of my thoughts about our other books. Is it specifically, I don't think it is specifically Bachman books. I think it is King. How many King books are just book-long road trips? lot.
I mean, the
Yup.
Talisman,
The Long Walk.
the Long Walk,
Well,
all of the Dark Tower books, which are
uh,
essentially just one long walk.
this gave me such Running Man vibes.
Yeah.
Because it's him traveling and basically reverse Running Man hunting these people down.
I feel that.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, I just want to mention, because this is important eventually, but Billy calls home to tell Heidi that he's making progress, but she's not there. He ends up talking to Linda. And like later I realized it's like a paragraph. I was like, why? But I think it's just helping to establish that he does hate his wife, but the one person he cares about is Linda.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that later. But yeah, 20 pages of him going town to town, stopping at like every third gas station or general store on the way to check in and see if anybody's seen them, make sure he's on the right path. And the things of note that happen in this chapter, and if you guys have anything else you want to add, you can. But one thing is that he calls his law firm, realizes immediately or thinks immediately that the phone is tapped because he hears this double click. And I felt like at this point, that's when he's becoming really emotionally unstable because of like all the changes his body is going through, and that's going to affect your mental health as well.
It's a weird way to, in this like one chapter between calling home and then calling work, they push everyone, they sever all of his connections to everyone but Janelli.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that was interesting about this chapter was his interaction with realtor Frank Quigley. And he has a fantastic murder fantasy about this guy.
If I ever met a man named Biff, I would want to beat him to death with a bronzed turd.
That's really what you said is real. That's
exactly
I had to think about
what
that
happened.
a moment. I'm like, yeah, that's accurate.
This character is just, well, he's just the realtor from Salem's Lot.
Yes.
But compressed into one scene.
Didn't mention anybody's Jehobies, so.
That's
Yeah.
true. But I did like that part between them because I didn't see it coming. He's like, hey, it's going to cost you $200, but not for this information about the Lemkeys. I'll give you that for free. It's what I don't tell the others. And Billy's like, huh?
It's what I won't tell your wife. Like, the guy's an extortionist. It's
Yeah, they've already made contact with him, which I thought was cool because I didn't realize how close they were. They were closing in
Yeah.
on Billy.
It just made me think, why not? He was clearly willing to pay for the information. Why not just be like, oh, all right, you can just pay me that $200 for the information. I don't need to go through this whole other step.
I love, though, I just want to read part of how he describes his fantasy. Not the,
Yes,
I mean,
please.
you recapped it, but afterwards, you know, he fantasizes about killing him and the guy can see it on his face and he starts to get like, oh shit, seeming like he's going to reach for the intercom or a gun or both. Billy calms down and he says he had just visualized beating the man's brains out, not in any vague way, in the mental equivalent of Technicolor and Dolby Sound, and good old Biff had known he was doing it too. I was like, yeah.
I love the line at the end as he's leaving. He is at this part where he forces himself to turn around, and I believe the quote, and this is off the top of my head, but the quote is something along the lines of, I had to leave before I leapt at him, and my hands used some terrible secret language they knew, or something like that. It's like, that's a fucking badass way to say, I want to beat the shit out of this guy.
All of these interactions that he's having that we get along this journey, it always ends with someone like, okay, man, can you just go because I can't even be near you anymore. You are too unsettling. And he's like, yeah, I get it. And I don't want to be around you either. And it's like, that just, it ends that way every time. It's kind of sad, except Billy's a prick. So he finally ends up in Bar Harbor. And they're not in the town proper, the Lemke family, anymore. They've been given the boot by the local cops already, but they are on the outskirts of town. And Billy's pretty sure that Lemke knows he's there and he's waiting for them, and that's why they haven't moved on yet. And so he finally arrives at their camp, and no one is surprised to see him there or surprised by how he looks. Look, can we talk about the initial, just the first confrontation between him and Gina?
This is one of my favorite scenes just because of he's like kind of sneaking up on the camp and you think he's gonna like I don't know, that
like
he's
he
gonna
has a
like,
plan?
yeah, like he has a plan, or that he's going to try and like move, because it's all these people sitting around a big campfire. Their camp is set up in these concentric circles, kind of like a cemetery we read about once.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought he was gonna try and find Teddy to talk to him, but then it says like one of the dogs, because they have all these dogs around the camp, turns to look at him, and he's just standing in the ring of their campfire.
Yeah.
And the thought of just like all these people turning and seeing this skeletal grinning man in a suit just standing looming over them is such an unsettling. It's so much more menacing than anything the Romani do in the entire book.
And them not being surprised by any of this kind of does support that maybe Lemke has cursed a lot more people for less than killing a family member.
Mm.
I mean, he's 106. He's had some cursing time
Well,
in his life.
but they're not 106.
That's true.
Also, I don't think he's 106. I think he is much
yeah.
older.
You know, he's like a Rainbird character to me. Sort of that mysterious.
Like you'd read a prequel book about just
Yeah.
his life to see. Yeah.
Mhm.
I feel that.
Like there's this power in him that he should not have.
God, I would love a series of King books where it's just the villains.
Yeah,
It's
that
just
would be
the
awesome.
villains' backstories, because we've talked about that a number of times. Rainbird, Barlow. We want just a Barlow book
Yep.
of him running around being a vampire.
And then we have a team up movie where we bring them all together.
Yeah, where we're forming a team.
The Injustice League.
That's a thing, though.
It is.
Oh.
That is a thing.
Damn it. Okay. Josh, you want to talk about his conversation with Gina?
The note that I wrote is Gino walks up to him, spits in his face, and he'd still fuck her. They're like, Gina is a lot of characters. It's very easy to imagine how they look, but I find it sometimes difficult when they have characters like Gina, who is just, she's always just described, she's almost described as an eldritch horror of beauty. Like that, everyone's just like, she's perfect. She looks the most beautiful.
She looks the best.
Fair.
Yeah.
Which is funny because it's almost like she's almost one of those characters where that's all she is. She's just there to be hot.
Oh,
and
but that definitely.
and like you expect her to just be like, oh, this is just, she has to be there to represent his like longing to be, to run away.
To make him
and-
more of a pig.
Yeah, exactly. But then every scene she is in past, every time you see her, she is more feral and fucking kick ass.
Yeah, she is.
She is the coolest villain in this book.
But she calls him a monster and basically says that she hopes she gets to see him rot and fall to pieces.
That is funny. Gina might be the only not villain in.
Yeah. Well, no.
Well, yeah, she does murder a few people now that I'm thinking about it.
And that's
'Cause I
probably
was gonna
not the
say-
first time because
Yeah. Because I was going to say, yeah, her and Linda are the only innocents in this book.
okay, Linda's the only innocent.
Yes, Linda is the only innocent in this book.
Ooh, you guys. Okay, now he has a confrontation with Lemke. What did you guys think of this exchange between these two? Finally, that we've been building up for like 18 chapters.
Not at all what I thought it would be.
He kind of did his plan.
He kind of did
He
his
tweaked it a little bit.
Yeah, he kind of did his first plan more than the second plan.
Do you want to describe what he pitches Lemke?
Yeah, he basically, Lemke tells him that, they don't have any further business. What's done is done. This is how you die. See you later. And he brings up his own daughter and that Tattoos is killing him and taking him away from his daughter the same way he inadvertently took his daughter from him. And
Hey man, I think Susanna took herself from her family when she chose to jaywalk and get hit by a car.
Yeah.
but it poses the very serious question of how much killing does it take for revenge? When does the cycle of violence stop? If you take one from me, I take one from you, you take two from me, I take three from you, like, where does it end?
Yeah, he's trying to appeal to him by saying, we are causing a generational problem if you don't take this curse off of me. Or, I'll just give you guys my daughter Linda's address, and then she and Gina can meet up one day and shoot each other in the face. It's like, okay.
He's trying for a plea bargain, I think, is what's happening.
It's a push.
Yeah, we're both guilty people here. Yeah, a push.
Yeah, let's talk about the push, because that's an interesting thing that stays with us.
During this impassioned plea of, hey, yeah, I killed your daughter, but come on, we're even.
You made me lose weight.
That is his argument is like, my life can never be the same because of this. Even if I go back to, if you take the curse off, I'm never going to be able to go back to the way I was.
Which, for the record, was him realizing that his life was kind of like empty and shallow before. So arguably, if the curse is lifted, his life will have improved.
Yeah, in a family movie, this is the moment where he learns that he needs to focus on his kids and family rather than work all
and he
day.
turns down the big promotion.
Yeah.
He's a bad lawyer. He cannot argue well.
So he says, so take it off. This is a push. I killed your daughter. You inconvenienced me. We're even. And Tedda's flips the fuck out, rightfully, saying, no, that's not how any of this works. No push. There is no push. There will never be a push. And he's right.
Yeah. And we find out that he knows exactly what was happening in that car. And I wrote this down because I thought it was interesting, because this whole time Billy is blaming Heidi. And he's like, well, if he knew what you were doing, you would have your own curse. And he didn't, so you don't. And he's mad at her because she's not taking any part of this, willingly or unwillingly. I just thought that was cool because it further illustrates that Billy is bad.
Yeah.
He sucks, because even the guy whose daughter he killed is not blaming Heidi. Mm-hmm. Yet he's harboring all this hatred for her.
Yeah, because obviously, no one's going to blame the person that wasn't driving.
Any woman who holds a dick in her hand should be given an award.
That's what that trophy behind you is.
Yes. Oh, jeez. Okay, so I thought it was just
a hand holding a roll of quarters.
Good night, everybody.
All right.
So they're wrapping up their little meeting together, and they're arguing, and Lemke's like, I could make this even worse for you. And Billy's like,
fuck around and find out.
I don't actually think that you can. And I really liked this point that he had, because he points out, I think that this curse is like an agreement between us, whether or not we're both entirely aware of it, because he had blame for running over Susanna. He had blame for that first curse. But Lemke can't curse him again without him doing something to be a participant in this agreement.
I took it as that's interesting. I took it as you can't curse me because we both played a role meaning his role was knowing that he did have fault in it. And now he's kind of past accepting blame for anything. The rest of this book is him saying, none of this is my fault. He slowly just passes off all blame. And so I read it as you can't curse me because I have to feel bad. I have to feel bad about something for the curse to take hold.
I read it as because I think about curses like you're taking energy from something. So something has to justify taking that energy to place this curse on. So if he did something egregious against them again, then he might be able to, I don't want to say accept, but they're describing it as an agreement. So kind of, accept this curse.
Yeah. Man, my interpretation is way dumber.
Oh?
I just thought he was like, can't double curse someone.
That's the rules.
Because that
have been established.
I don't know why, but in my brain, I was like, yeah, you can't curse me with, you already cursed me with thinner. You can't give me another curse. I've already got one.
Yeah, double jeopardy.
No, it would just, it would just slide off him, in my opinion, because he hasn't done anything. I
That
don't
makes
know.
sense.
So despite his excellent sweet talk, Lemke refuses to take it off. And Gina comes back and wraps things up in a nice little bow.
Yeah. The Sam and another Romani are dragging him away, and he's like throwing his hands up, and he's still throwing a fit. Gina just pops around the corner, puts a ball bearing in her slingshot, and fires a hole straight through his hand.
And
so good.
He goes down in this next scene. If I didn't hate him so much, if he wasn't such a piece of shit, I would have been rooting for him because it's really badass because he painstakingly pulls himself up because when he hits the ground, there is nothing there to break his fall.
Mhm.
He's like bones and skin.
Yeah, what is he down to now at this point in the book?
I think
Like
it's
120 or something?
Something like that, yeah. And so he gets up and he confronts Lemke again and he lays down his own curse, the curse of the white man from town.
Yeah, this sucks.
It's
Also the lamest title.
well,
for a
it's a
curse.
curse that somehow has been given life and come outside of this book, and we're still dealing with it.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not so much a curse as he curses him with white supremacy. Like,
oh God.
no, that's
Yeah.
what it is. Like, they're already cursed by the curse of the white man from town. He just makes it worse.
Interesting. So I guess my thought was that because nobody knows how this works, everybody we've talked to has a different opinion about how it works. Why does it work? All this stuff. And to me, if Billy is going on the basis of you have to believe curses have power for curses to have power, he knows they believe in curses. So he's hoping it, even though he lacks any sort of magical power, that the threat of a curse will intimidate them and make them want to step back.
Well, yes, in the world of the book, I do believe it is meant as a literal curse because during their confrontation, there's this cool moment when Lemke is saying, "Fuck you, I'll never take it off." He does this thing where he holds his hand out in a fist and squeezes, and blood falls out of his empty hand, which is badass.
And Billy feels his insides crunch together.
Yeah. And
Fucking
so
cool.
at this point, Billy has been shot through the hand, so he has blood pouring down his hand, and he does the same action towards Lemke in a like, I'm trying to think of another because this is also a very King thing of just like doing something because there seems like magic there, you know?
That's like the white.
Yes,
kind of, yeah.
except the not.
Right. The white.
Because he's
Yeah.
a shitty old white man. But he holds his hand out and squeezes and blood falls out and Lemke freaks out because he's like, oh,
There's power in that.
yeah, there's power in that. But when you really think about just the phrase, the curse of the white man from town, it's like, come on. The white man from town is already winning and it sucks.
Which that conversation comes back around later. It doesn't even involve him.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this scene, I don't know, you guys. I'm not rooting for Billy, and I don't know that I ever was in this
Right.
entire book, start to finish. But you know who I kind of do root for, despite myself?
Is it Janelli?
Janelli, yeah. And I called him Janelli last time, and I'm going to go with Janelli just so I can hit all of the,
Cover all your bases.
Yeah, so he finally, in chapter 20, he's making the call. He's down to 118 pounds at this point. This is shortly after this confrontation. He goes to the hotel room. And I had to remind myself, I'm like, wait a minute, 118, that sounds okay. He's 6'2".
6'2".
Yeah, so that's really, really bad.
I didn't think about that the first time I read this book. I did not think about that. Because, okay, the premise of this book, obviously, is dumb. Right? Like, try to explain. I was talking to one of my friends and, like, explaining that I had to go read for the podcast. And they asked, what are you reading? And I told them they hadn't heard of it. Try explaining this book to someone that's never heard of it. It sounds stupid. It's a guy gets cursed and he loses weight forever.
Yeah.
No matter what. And you're like, how can that carry a whole book? But when you think of a 6'2" man weighing 120 pounds, I can't even imagine how upsetting that would look.
Yeah.
He would look like the pale man from Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I think about the giant from Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
That's what I envision a lot, but scarier, if that's possible.
So he calls Janelli and he tells him he's hurt and he needs help. And Janelli sends an associate, Fander, to fix him up. And that's a fun visit. This guy is just a ray of sunshine.
He did get woken up at 3 a.m. to get on a plane.
I bet he got paid.
Yeah, but he got
for
paid
that.
super well.
Yeah, I like this because it shows how fucking powerful Janelli is.
Yeah.
That he, Billy just calls him in the middle of the night because he's been sitting in his car with his hand trying to ignore it until a reasonable hour. But he gets to a point where he's like, I'm dying. It hurts so much. Please send someone. And he's just like, yep, they'll be there soon. And he sends just some random dude on a private jet at 3 a.m. This guy's got reach.
Janelli's awesome.
So he bandages him up and he's like, you need to have some potassium because you are going to have heart problems. And I shouldn't even be giving you pain medication. You should barely be taking baby ass. You know what? Just lick this tablet. Don't even swallow it. Just lick it and put it down. I was frustrated at this part because as he's leaving, he's telling him, whatever hunger strike you're on, you need to give it up. Like, dude, people get sick, and to just assume that they're purposefully starving themselves is really shitty. So that was just annoying. Anyway,
That is shitty. And then Billy immediately takes 3 pills.
Yeah.
so stupid.
I also, the heart problems never occurred to me. Like, I was so focused on the, he gets so thin that what happens. And my brain was not thinking, oh yeah, just organ failure and stuff.
Yeah.
So that just started throwing me for a loop.
So Janelli arrives a few hours later and he has Billy tell him this whole story. What did you guys think of their reunion?
I loved it. I love that Janelli comes in and he's like, got a bottle of Chivas Regal and he's like, let's do some shots and you tell me about stuff.
Also good for your heart.
Yeah.
And like one single shot to a 6'2" person that weighs 120 pounds, you'd be tore up immediately.
He would have just gone to sleep.
Yeah.
But I like that he takes the shot and then he has to go to the bathroom to hide that he's crying.
I really thought he was going to go throw it up immediately.
He is so touched by everything Janelli does because he believes every word. And Billy was worried about that because initially when they'd had a conversation a few weeks ago, he had asked him, do you believe in, things like curses? And he's like, I only believe in what I see. And he brings that back up and he's like, yeah, I believe in what I see. So when I see something that cannot be explained, I have to recognize that it's something crazy. And that's what's kept him a successful mobster or whatever.
Janelli is such a kick-ass character. We've complained so much throughout the podcast about characters who are like presented with crazy shit and then are like, I don't know. And it's like, it just happened in front of you. And Janelli to just be like, you're real thin. Let's go kill a wizard.
Janelli, from this point till we're done with Janelli, just seems to be having the best time. He's loving it.
Any clue, Josh, and sorry, Ben, you and I have read this, so it's going to be for you. Any clue how important this conversation would be later?
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's almost like a throw. It's like, it feels like just the book's way of explaining why he would help him, that he believes in, but no, it is deeper than that. So something else important about Janelli, Billy sees pretty quickly on during this process, this swirling, twinkling madness in his eyes, and it never really goes away. And later he comes to realize that he has set something loose, like he really has unleashed a curse that he could not take back if he wanted to. And it's kind of surprising because he's been such a kind of piece of crap. He doesn't want him to hurt anyone. And Janelli's kind of playing along with it. He's like, I won't until I decide that doesn't work for me anymore.
Yeah.
He's a mobster. What do you want to do?
And
I mean,
Billy's-
God forbid Billy be a hypocrite.
Yeah.
He did just say the cycle of violence should end.
Billy's really naive about Janelli and what he is capable of and what he does. I also want to mention, too, this whole time, we get occasional reminders that Billy still really hates Heidi for daring to give him a handy in the car. Also very important later.
Yeah, just every time that Heidi comes up, there's more just like bile towards her.
Yeah, if we mentioned every instance of that, it would be an extra 5 minutes of discussion.
Easy.
Yeah. Two other important things that happened that I was kind of wondering, Josh, if you'd noticed this. Was it remarkable to you at all when they were talking about how they can't kill Lemke because the curse would probably just run its course, and the problem is that you can't take back a hit, even though it's basically what they're trying to do, get him to take it back. But and Janelli's like, he says that, but he's like, I need to think on this more. He's totally right, as we come to find out. He doesn't take it back necessarily.
I assumed that as soon as they brought it up, I was like, yeah, probably. I mean, that would be a really shitty curse. Let's just say he just died from being a million years old. And then the curse is over. That'd suck. If you're going to make a curse, you're going to make it stick.
I had never made that connection, that line, you can't take back a curse.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can't take back a hit, rather.
Yeah.
I never made that connection that was like
Foreshadowing.
also telling of what Lemke had done. It's kind of like very unself-aware. Where he's like, you can't take back a hit. Lemke put out a hit on you with magic. This is a lost cause.
Yeah. Well, and it's also near this other scene, which becomes significant later, is Billy's, I can't remember if it's like a dream or a vision of the pie that we mentioned in the first episode.
Janelli is like, I'm going to go take care of some stuff. I'll be back eventually. Don't worry about it. And Billy just passes out and has this, what he says is a dream, but feels like a vision.
Mm-hmm.
In this vision, he is in his home, sitting at the kitchen table with Heidi, with a pie in front of him. And he pushes it towards her and says, no, I want you to have it. I've decided I like being thin. And that's it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And you're like, oh, that's weird. Until.
Yeah, until the end.
Wait, isn't this also the dream where Tattoo's bird rips off his daughter's scalp, or is that later?
I think that's later.
Oh, it's later.
Oh, yeah.
There are a lot of good
That's
dreams.
some good. King Red's dream sequence like no other.
So over the next few days, Billy is so weak. He's starting to have these heart problems. And he's basically just like sleeping and eating or drinking when Janelli's around. And Janelli's coming in and out, doing his thing. And Billy's asking, and he's like, just let me take care of some things. And then I promise I'll bring you up to speed. I'll tell you everything. I thought this was awesome, though, the way that the rest of this book is set up, because we get all of this just from Billy's perspective, kind of coming in and out of consciousness. So we don't really know what's happening. And then when Janelli finally sits down and tells him the whole story, we're still getting that through Billy's eyes, but then we cut to Janelli's POV here and there.
Can I summarize how disjointing how Billy experiences this?
Yeah.
So he goes to sleep. He wakes up to Janelli walking in covered in mud, and he's like, "What happened? Don't worry about it." Leaves. Wakes up the next time to Janelli coming in. Pack everything. We need to go 15 miles down the road. Then he leaves for 48 hours. Then he comes back with a deep gash on his forehead and his arm torn open, and he's like, "We got it."
It is
It's so insane.
a really cool sequence. I think I did not like this sequence the first time because it seems just like you're waiting for so long, but it gives you the feeling of that Billy is feeling
Yeah.
of like the impatience that he must be feeling to be like, what's going on out there? I bet it's cool.
But it's cool.
And then once he finally finishes everything, it's so surprising that it's like, okay, the job's done. You're meeting him tonight in a few hours. It's a really cool way of making the suspense. Suspense. Wow. Good.
Suspense is suspenseful.
Suspense is, playing is for enjoyment.
All right, let's talk about Janelli's 3 curses. The first one is the dogs.
Sorry, his 3 curses, and he cursed 3 people, and it made my brain explode for a minute. I didn't see that.
Hold on. So, okay. Yeah. So Lemke cursed Billy,
Carrie, and
Carrie,
Hopely.
and Hopely. Janelli curses the dogs, Samuel, and Gina.
He has 3
Is there
hit-
anything there?
He has 3,
Is this
yeah.
anything?
Well, he has 3 hits, and that's how I initially referred to him. I'm like, no, these are his
Mhm.
curses. I have dogs, guns, Gina.
Yeah. Yeah.
He does 3, I don't want to say remarkable. They're fun to read about, but they're terrible for the Lemke's, and
Yeah.
they don't deserve it. But anyway.
Better for the dogs.
Oh my God. Janelli has some stake, and it's not what you think it is. If you're me and praying, it's not what you think it is. He has learned, as we know, of course, about these dog fights. And so the first curse, the first thing that he does, Janelli, is he goes to the camp. It's a really cool scene where he's like being stealthy, and the way he's telling Billy about this adventure is really neat. But he basically poisons the dogs, and he's commenting that it was a better end for them because they're kept drugged up, because they're made to be so vicious that if they're not kind of dopey all the time, when they're not fighting, they'll kill each other, or they'll kill themselves trying to get away from whichever one is killing them. So it's just terrible animal cruelty.
Especially coming this immediately after leaving Billy the first time and being like, no one gets hurt. It was literally the last thing he says
Yeah.
before he leaves Billy's and immediately kills a dozen dogs.
But to be fair, his heroin and strychnine steak and them already being drugged up made them like doze off and just go very fast. And he reminds Billy this is a much more peaceful end than they would have had.
And if you're thinking that the Lemke's maybe are the good guys, this makes that a complicated feeling.
Yeah.
The next thing that he does is, okay, I don't know anything about guns. He takes these really cool guns, these automatic rifles.
It's a Kalashnikov, they
it's
say.
it's an AK-47.
Yeah.
What I said.
It's an assault rifle.
Okay. And he shoots up the entire camp. But he doesn't hit anybody that we know of. I don't even know if he would know if he hit somebody. But this scene was really cool too, because he's shooting low. He's just taking out their tires and everything. Also serves the purpose of keeping them there, because he wants to torment them so much that they want to run, but he also wants to make sure they can't run.
Yeah, because after the dogs, he says they've gone to ground, that they move camp, and their first camp was where the locals could find them. But this is off the beaten path, deep in the woods. They're trying to disappear, and this solves that problem.
And 2 cool things happen when because he has a run-in with Samuel, and then just his observation of what Lemke does when he is firing on them is cool. Do you guys want to talk about that?
He finds Samuel standing guard
Kind
with
of.
a Walkman in. So he just knocks him out and tapes him to a tree, which is fantastic. He just it's action movie stuff.
Yeah.
Just infiltrating this camp.
Just
Very
describing
cool.
it doesn't do it justice.
Yeah, it's a very cool sequence. And as he's just lighting up this camp, he blows the tires out from the main camper that he knows Teddy's in. They all pour out to see what's going on. He just fires a line across the top of their heads, not to hit anyone, but just to scatter them.
Yeah.
And then he just unloads an entire clip into the front of this old shitty station wagon or
That
something.
nobody's in.
That he thinks,
Yeah.
as far as he is no one is in. But he just unloads it into the engine block. I'm like, well, yeah,
And the whole time.
that'll keep them where they are.
Yeah. The whole time Lemke, because he comes out to see what's going on, and he's telling everybody, take cover, you idiots. Because they're all just running around like crazy. And dude is not phased.
Nope.
And Janelli's like, respect.
And the second he comes around the side of the camper, he immediately looks into the woods, and Janelli immediately looks exactly where he is.
Yeah. And he is in the shadows. He has
Lamp black. He has lamp black all over his face.
So he is in complete darkness. There's no way this old man could see him from that distance. with no moon, but he is positive he's looking at him dead in his eyes.
So he takes off and gives Samuel a message to give to Lemke.
I really like this exchange.
Yeah.
He pulls the tape off of Sam's mouth and he's like, they're out here. If you yell, they're going to find you. I'm not going to kill you. I'm not a monster. And he tells him to give the message to take off the curse. And Sam's like, he's not going to do it. There's no way. Even if I told him, the man's heart is made of brick. He is never going to do it. And Janelli goes, well, remind him that bricks can be crushed into dust.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, fuck.
Well, and he's like, you all you have to do is deliver the message.
Yeah.
So like your job is done. I don't care what you think he'll do with it. You just deliver it. He's very practical, and I like that in a villain.
Yeah.
And the fact that he actually does follow.
He has a code.
It is the fact that he doesn't do any more damage than he needs to freak them out.
Yeah.
Because he easily could have just beaten the absolute shit out of Samuel to send a message, and he doesn't.
To make our main character, to make you hate him more than an actual like mob boss bad guy is brilliant.
It kind of is.
So the next night, because the purpose for this too was they're not so far away that the whole town did not hear this amazing gunfire. So now the cops are involved. And this sets up a really good cover for Janelli to come back the next day. He is posing as an FBI agent. When he's telling Billy the story later, he shows him his ID. And he's like, oh my God, that looks real. And Janelli says, it is real, everything but the picture. And then Billy thinks about what happened to the real Agent Stoner.
I love that moment.
His target this time is Gina. So let's talk about, because I want to see their face off later, and we don't.
This is such a brilliant plan. The way things have fallen together, this is not Janelli reacting day by day. Janelli looked at all these pieces and set all of this in motion for it to end this way. He shows up, pulls up in front of a bunch of other cops, flashes the badge, gets through, then picks arbitrarily somebody to start interviewing and puts the pressure on them to point out Gina. Goes to Gina. We find out that she's studying what? What is she going to school for? Yeah. She's like taking college courses and she's just doing that in her spare time.
She's a full, well-rounded person.
She's humanized.
Dope.
A little bit.
And he knows exactly what to do. He's saying, I'm investigating the shooting. Does the name William Halleck mean anything to you? And that's when she gets tunnel vision. And he's like, I'm here. I have an arrest warrant. We can take him down right now. If you can come with me and identify him, I have these photos. Come with me to my car. We can identify him. And she doesn't even think for a second, why didn't he have them with him? Why are they in his car? Until she's at his car. And when she pieces it all together, he is in advance taken a mason jar and poured Pepsi into it. And he's like, good luck shooting a slingshot with no fucking eyes. It's acid. And throws it in her face.
Acid. Did he say?
Yeah, he does. He goes, hey, this is acid.
Yeah.
Ah.
I feel like you don't need to say that, though. If someone threw something in my face, I'm just always going to assume it's acid.
And the fact that it's Pepsi,
You're so much fun at water balloon fights.
This is
Our
every
Derry
single
annual water balloon fight.
But it is very funny that it's Pepsi, so it's kind of tingly and burning.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And she drops to the ground and she's holding her eyes. And just at the moment when she realizes I'm not burning to death, he steps on her neck.
Ooh. And I like, too, that he almost underestimates her at every turn. He's
Yeah.
like, I just in time, like barely realized what she was about to do. And I was able to circumvent that. He's just such a cool character because not only does he have a guy for everything, he put all this stuff together. He has, people flying in and out to give him things, to take his rental cars. He hires a dude off the street to tail them. That guy, we didn't even talk about that. That guy
He gets shot in the head.
Yeah, he gets too close and they realize that he's following them. And Janelli finds him at like a gas station in the abandoned rental car with a hole in his head and a dead chicken in his lap and in chicken blood written across his forehead the word pig.
Yes.
And then he buries
No, it
the
says
guy.
It's never.
Oh, I thought Pig was somewhere.
Pig is later.
Okay. Then
Pig is on his head.
Oh, okay.
Spoilers.
Then he buries the guy, and he's just been going and going and going, so he hasn't had any sleep. He
He's a busy
buries
dude.
him with his keys in his pocket
And
for
has
the car.
to go back for them.
Well, not to get rid of the car because he has a guy come hotwire it and drop it off at an airport, but
he has to return the keys.
Yeah, well, and he doesn't, if
Yeah.
they find the body, because he didn't bury it very well, then they're going to be able to tie the keys to him.
Yeah.
It's just, he had to go through, like, there were mistakes and things he had to deal with. He's had a rough few days.
Yeah, but he deals with them. He's very competent. And also during this confrontation with Gina, where you're right, it is an equal fight, I would say, because she is just like, this is what I said, she's feral at this point. She is just attacking and attacking and attacking.
It was her mom.
Yeah.
The conversation that Janelli and Gina have in the car as he's driving her, like, they're driving a distance away before he lets her out so she can go back.
Yeah, the way that ends is awesome.
That, because he's made it very clear, I'm not killing you as a choice. Like, I'm actively choosing not to kill any of you, but you guys did a bad thing. And then she's like, well, he did a bad thing, so he's being punished. And he's like, well, now you're being punished. And it's the conversation of whose side is God on. And like that, the fact that she is digesting that Janelli is this curse that he has put on them. Like, how, if what they did to Billy is justice, how is Janelli coming after them something God is allowing to happen?
No, this is, once again, this is the white supremacy coming through, because you're right. It's the way people of color are treated, where they only did what they did for self-defense. Well, not self-defense because it was after the fact, but it was like kind of justified because they've been treated so poorly. And for Billy to treat what is done to him as equal to what Janelli threatens to do to these people, not the same. And she's just bawling the whole time. It's kind of really heartbreaking.
Because I feel like the book is kind of leading us to believe that if justice had been served, even by the legal system, maybe not necessarily the way the family would serve justice, but if that had been done, Billy wouldn't have been cursed.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's, Semi was on the right page when you asked me last episode what I thought we were going to see next. I talked about humanizing the Romani a little bit, and it wasn't happening. And then this scene happened, and I was like, I'm really glad we got this moment, because these are two people who are very deep into the shit show that's happening, but neither one of them are the most affected party. And so it's just really interesting to see these two people who are essentially the enforcers of their respective groups have this conversation. Probably the two most physically violent people from each camp having this emotional, spiritual conversation is so crazy. And I'm so glad we got it.
And despite what they could potentially have in common, just sharing those characteristics, it ends with, I can't remember exactly how he says it. He says it very eloquently, but him basically saying, you know what, get out of the car. We can't talk to each other. We can't even understand each other because they just keep arguing in circles with one another.
Yeah, we can't talk. We're not even hearing each other.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, you're right.
So he ends this crazy tale with the news that Billy is meeting Lemke that night at 7 p.m. Janelli takes Billy to the park and he tells him, hey, I'm going to be nearby watching. I'm sure their people are too. And, I'll be close enough that I can keep an eye on things and keep an eye on you. So Billy walks down to a shady park bench and
with his bag full of oranges.
With his bag. Oh, because he's having a lot of heart issues. Yeah. So he's been eating oranges and potassium, trying to get potassium to keep himself going.
Because he has severe heart arrhythmia, which is scary.
Even knowing, because I've read this before, how it ends, I was still anxious. Like, is he going to make it?
The moment I want to point out is because we are coming to the finish line here. Billy has learned every lesson he is going to learn, presumably.
I think he's unlearned
I-
several
yeah.
lessons at this point.
Following traditional narrative,
Yeah.
our main character should be at the end of learning what they're here to learn.
Mhm.
And I just want to read the last thought he has before he falls asleep on the bench. We need the gypsies. We always have. Because if you don't have someone to run out of town once in a while, how are you going to know you yourself belong there? And I was like, well, I had a little bit of hope, Billy. I had a little bit of hope that you were going to take something away from this. The fact that that's his takeaway, I understand that he is, in a weird way, starting to see himself as more quote unquote gypsy than the white man from town he started as.
Cultural appropriation much.
There's no evidence to back that up besides him being like, I'm the hero of my story.
I'm a gypsy too.
It sucks because it's him turning into more and more like them. He makes that statement after this next part that happens, where he says that all of his emotions have fallen away. He's a empty husk. And that's the moment where the book is like, he's more like them than the people of Fairview. Well, that's just saying that he thinks all of the Romani are evil.
Yep.
And
He's learned nothing.
learned absolutely nothing.
And he only has like 2 barely moments of regret and grief over what he did. 2 moments where he's like, well, I did kill this woman and that's awful. It's just so painfully brief.
Yeah.
And he never again returns to that or decides like, oh, maybe I do actually deserve what's happening to me. Or I deserve some form
Yeah.
of justice. There was a debt that I did not pay and now I'm paying this one.
Yeah, the guilt he feels at the beginning of the book, which isn't the most, but the guilt he feels at the beginning of the book is gone. He has, like I said earlier, he has completely given up all. He's so concentrated on it's everyone else's fault that he has lost sight that he was the fucking one that did this in the first place.
This is where he has that other dream.
This is the dream where he is dreaming that he is laying on the ground and he is feeling the vulture eating him.
All the dreams
And
are
then wakes up to find it's
Lemke
poking
poking
him. They sit down in this park and Lemke's like, well, he's basically taunting him, saying, you want to push? Okay, I'll give you a push. You believe in the push. Here it is. And he presents to him a pie that he then fingers for a while.
Oh, I don't like that you phrased it like that.
It's true. It's what he
Right?
does.
No, I literally did not think of the phrase fingering a pie at all while reading this. That's on you
Okay.
guys.
He says he slits it open and then puts his fingers on the other side and like slips it open and closed.
Don't make that gesture.
Yeah, that was unpleasant.
I was the
I don't.
No, don't do it twice.
Oh,
No.
God, sorry.
I don't
Rule
like
threes.
Oh my god.
it. Listeners,
Listeners,
be glad.
I did the Uncle Joey cut it out, but I did it horizontally instead of vertically.
Thanks for ruining Pie and Full House and just the space that I'm in right now.
But he says, okay, this curse, it isn't.
He describes it as being like a baby.
It's an actual thing that that has been given to you, and you have fed it.
You can't get rid of a baby.
Yeah,
You have to give it to someone else if you want to get rid of it. Adoption.
Yeah,
He's going to adopt out
Yeah,
the
curse adoption.
but he's like, you can't just get rid of it. It's growing. It's living. It is a living thing. So what you have to do is put your curse in this pie and then feed it to someone. The first time I read through this, I was like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. What did you think, Josh? I want to know your opinions.
So the one thing that I was wrong about was I thought that the implication was, now, okay, he stabs himself through the hand, bleeds into the pie. You have 2 weeks to give this to someone or else you'll get it double. That fun whole spiel. And so I imagined it was he was going to at that moment I knew he was going to drive home, tie his wife to the chair, and force feed her an entire strawberry pie. That is what I assumed was going to happen. Because I also thought that someone had, when he said they have to eat the pie, as in you have to eat the whole pie or else nothing. It's an all or nothing, feast or famine. But I was close.
See, I'm not a pie fan, so you would have to tie me to a chair.
That's why I had to demonstrate how pies work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. Next time I do have to bake a pie, I'm going to finger it. Just like Josh showed me. This gets worse. Okay. Ben is ashamed of all of us. Before Lemke leaves, he tells Billy basically that what he should do is eat the pie himself and die strong, die with dignity, basically. Having only the stain of Susanna's death on his heart. But Billy's hatred for Heidi has grown inside of him like a curse, like another baby. He can't unmake it. And so he's going to definitely give it to Heidi.
Well, he says that Billy recognizes, he's like, okay, this push that we're even isn't I killed your daughter and you killed me or whatever, you cursed me. That's the push. He says the push is now my wife for my daughter.
Yeah.
Which sucks, obviously.
A couple things. The last thing he says to him basically is be careful who eats the meal that was meant for you. I would like to posit that he knows full well exactly what's going to happen.
Yes,
100%.
Obviously.
And I just love that.
Because
it is so cool. The other thing I wanted to ask you guys, because I know my answer, who would you give the pie to?
Why would he not take it
To a serial
to
killer.
Houston?
Yeah. Force feed it to Houston.
Where is he going to find a serial killer?
Man,
Take it to crazy prison and have an interview.
Crazy prison.
I don't want to say what I would do with it and have it on public record. So I'm not going to.
Would you feed it to a dog?
I decline to answer. What I would have done is before I knew what happened, I wrote down in my notes that my plan was to take the pie back to the car, get in there with Janelli, and be like, Janelli,
I got you this.
No, not like feed it to Janelli, but be like, Janelli, who's somebody you want to die? Like, you did me a favor. I'm going to give you the perfect hit.
But I think he has to be the one.
No, he can still deliver it.
The curse is in there, though. I don't know. That would have been...
Yeah, the rules are vague.
You know what they say? The curse is in the pudding.
This part I didn't see coming somehow. I missed all the foreshadowing. When Billy left the car, Janelli had made the comment that he's going to be on the lookout for everyone else too, because if he does not see Gina coming before she sees him, that's it. He knows how dangerous she is.
If she sees me coming before I see her, I won't have to change my shirt anymore, if you know what I mean. Which is
like
a great turn
line.
of phrase.
So, Josh, what happens? You like Janelli so much, and Billy gets back to the car.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go on a disrespect rant. He goes and he opens the door, and he's like, oh, Janelli's not in the... what's that on the passenger seat? Oh, it's Janelli's hand. Ah, shit.
He gave him a hand.
And so instead he throws a newspaper on it and puts his pie on it and then takes the car and leaves. Goes to McDonald's and throws away Janelli's hand in the trash can. Like a that shows some respect.
He should have given it a proper burial.
Yes.
Said some words, put some flowers down.
He should have taken that hand back to Janelli's people and been like, I know where the Romani who did this are.
Well,
set him back out on him.
Two things, though. A, at this point, like I said, after he has the pie, after he has put this curse into the pie, he is not really human anymore. He is insane. He has lost his mind at this point.
Well, and his physical ailments have definitely affected his brain too. So part of the way he's acting could in part be attributed to him having very little control over his emotions. Not complete. I'm not trying to displace blame, but he's also, even if he didn't want to react the way he's reacting, he'd probably struggle.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I wanted to say was just, it's dumb to do that, because he as he's leaving, he throws away Janelle's hand and then goes and wipes down this rental car so his prints aren't all over the place. Like they are all over the place on the map that he wrapped Janelle's hand in and threw away.
That's hilarious.
Like,
I did not even consider that.
yeah.
Right, so he makes his way back home. He convinces Heidi, hey, I'm coming home, call off your dogs. It'll just complicate things if I'm trying to get back and they stop me. And just being super cold to her, especially when they meet, that is a heartbreaking scene.
It is sad the way he treats her because she can tell.
That he hates her. He's not even trying to pretend.
Yeah, he says that he thinks like, this is funny, which it's not. But he laughs to himself thinking she has went the other way from taking no responsibility for what she did. How dare she, to taking on all of the responsibility of everything that's happened. And it's so obvious that this whole thing has been tearing her apart.
She even offers to quit smoking, which is, they established as a big deal in their relationship. And he says, don't do that. You get fat when you quit smoking.
That made me so mad.
She should have just changed the locks on the doors after that conversation, been like, don't come home.
I'm curious because she was like, new hair, new clothes, had a bunch of new stuff. And I was like, what have you been doing?
See, okay, and like I said, I've read this before.
Did you think they were, because
I thought he was going to like at the last minute, I forgot what happened. I thought he was going to find out that she was having
with Houston.
Yeah.
He was having an affair.
I was 100% thinking that.
I also thought that, even though I've also read it.
Yeah, but no, not that we are made aware of.
No, in retrospect, that was setting up how he figures out, the bad news he gets the next morning. So anyway, he comes home. She's very sincerely happy to see him and apologetic and just wants everything to be okay. Finally, he realizes, oh, I should pretend to be human because I want her to eat this pie and like make nice. And so they have dinner and she's going to clean up and she sends him upstairs to go to bed. And he's like, well, Linda's not here because I already talked to her and made sure to lie about when I was coming home because I don't want her anywhere near this pie, which is a good idea.
Right.
And he falls asleep to the sounds of what he recognizes in the kitchen of her going to the cupboard where the dessert plates are and getting the pie server out of the drawer. And he goes to bed in the warm comfort of knowing that he's going to kill his wife.
And he wakes up in Arizona.
That threw me for a minute.
He has a dream that he and Linda, they move and he's practicing law in Arizona. And he's also doing a lot of pro bono work and they're living this really quiet, simple life together, just the way it should be, without his miserable wife who dared to, again, she is an angel for touching his dick.
For dealing with him.
How dare he?
Fucking all. But it's cool because this is not presented as a dream.
No.
It is literally he falls asleep and then it's like several months later, they're in Arizona and they're happy. Him and Linda, everything's great. And he's in his office and he turns around and Linda is standing in the doorway, holding her nose in her hand with a black gaping hole in her face, saying, I don't understand, it just fell off. And that's when he wakes up and realizes that his daughter's things are scattered around the house.
And that's why we had that set up with Heidi changing. She has a new shirt and her hair is different and some furniture was rearranged. And he's like, well, this is all weird. Why would she do any of that? So when he sees a blue robe hanging up, he's like, and she got a new robe. But when he wakes up in the morning and finally all clicks with him because he thinks back to what Janelle said about, I don't believe in these crazy things unless what I'm seeing tells me I need to believe in it because that's the reality right in front of me. And he realizes that his reality is that that's Linda's robe because she came home to make up with her mom before her dad got back. And he goes down to the kitchen and there are 2 dirty pie plates in the sink. So he ends up finishing the pie himself.
The
book,
he
just cuts it. Oh yeah, it does.
The book ends with him seeing this, accepting it, and saying he cuts himself a piece of the pie.
I wanted him to not do that and just live with
the misery of knowing what
and
he
having
did.
to watch them.
Yeah. But that's the point. Is
I
that
know.
his? Well, and so I was curious to talk to you guys about about this, your first impression versus now, because for my first impression, my first thought was upon him eating the pie was that's the most selfish choice to get out of accepting what you did to
It
me.
all means nothing.
And it comes back double on him, so he doesn't have to watch them suffer. Well, he doesn't have to watch Linda suffer. He's probably going to be dead before they get home. So whatever happens to them, he does not see that.
Not only is it selfish, did his selfishness kill other people besides who he's killed already, but it's killed the only innocent person in the story.
Lemke told him. He told him exactly what was going to happen with that parting line. This ending, the first time I read it, shocked me. I was much younger too, so it was hard to accept terrible things.
Yeah, a bummer of an ending.
That's why when this book was selected by one of our Patreon members, I was really excited because I'm like, oh, that's that book with the ending that totally got me. And I'm kind of going into rating.
Well,
Yeah, let's
now's
do
the
it.
time.
All right. Yeah. I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 blue chambray shirts, even though it's dark and hard to get through. There's not much likable about it. The only really likable thing is a real extreme, crazy, bad guy, Janelli.
The first time I read this book, I fucking hated it. It is such an unpleasant book. It's not a fun fucking beach read, that's for sure. This read through, being able to talk through it with you guys and like kind of work through some of the themes that I didn't realize, I just saw it as an unpleasant book about unpleasant people and it being kind of racist. But I didn't hate it as much this time because it's trying to say something. I'm not sure if I know what it is.
It does well what it's trying to do.
Yeah. That being said, it's fine. 3 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
This being my first time, I had the same thing we've already talked about, that how do you make a book with this premise interesting? And so it completely shocked me that by the end, I was all in. Janelli was the hero of this book for me. Like that, it was my absolute favorite thing is all of his stuff. And so the way it starts so slow, it takes like 80 pages. It took me 80 pages until we found out what happened to Rossington to like really get in. And, but from that point in, it just got better and better for me all the way until the end. But because that slow burn at the start was just kind of a slog for me to get through, I'm going to have to give it 4 out of 5 blue chambray shirts. That's it for this episode of Derry Public Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Join us for our next episode where we will be watching the film Thinner. For Benjamin Graham and CM Alexander, I'm Joshua Kahn reminding you, the definition of an asshole is a guy who doesn't believe what he's seeing. And you can quote me on that.
Hey everyone, CM Alexander here. Thank you for listening to Thinner Part 2. We hope you enjoyed it. I have a few extra bits at the end of the outro that didn't make the final cut, but before I get to that, I just want to remind everyone that we have new merchandise on our Etsy store. Go to Etsy/shop/Derry Public Radio. And don't forget to follow us on social media and on our Patreon page for discounts and updates. Thank you again to our awesome Patreon supporter, Kevin Sundstrom, for picking Thinner. Enjoy these outtakes. You guys know I hated this.
Yeah, let's talk about dog drama.
The alternate title of this podcast, honestly.
Boner Talk.
Stephen King presents drama. Boner Talk and Dog Trauma. How long do you think he had to search for an FBI agent whose last name was Stoner, though? You think it's like the kids that steal high streets road sign? He was like, okay, we've got this FBI informant or this FBI agent. We can kill him. We can take his ID. What's his name? Johnson. It's kind of funny, but we can do better.
We can do better, people.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
Screaming like never. He will never. He's gonna die thin. This is the point where I want to tell what I meant about Janelli. He could be worse. He's the only non-Romani character that does not sexualize Gina.
Yeah, he's the only. Well, he does say that
he says she's objectively beautiful, but he doesn't.
Yeah, but that's not. I don't think that's sexualizing. No. That's just being like, yeah, she's very pretty.
He doesn't talk
she
about.
She almost kicked my ass.
Yeah, he doesn't talk about the way her hips look under her
Yeah.
pants.
Sure. Yep.
Classic guy talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See that girl's hips under those pants?
Girl, you got hips under them pants.
Gross, you guys. I get asked that every day. The answer is no, I don't have hips. Look at me. That's all for now, listeners. Goodbye.